Well, like I said in that text, I thought I could talk about Adam as the immortal priest, and then the big three verses, and then I wanted to talk about the age 13, lucky number 13.
Yeah.
I don't know which subject do you think we should talk about?
Well, it seems like since we've already talked about like mankind, then Adam. I mean, we can talk about all three, but I'd say we could do the big three first.
All right.
So essentially, these three verses, these three passages or verses, I should say, are kind of the only three verses or passages that could allude that Adam was the first literal man that God created, but with a different look, and I would argue, and you would argue, a more accurate look at these passages. It completely opens up the opportunity now that Adam did not have to be the first man God created.
Right. Yeah, and I think probably the best way to look at them is 1 Corinthians 15, the first man Adam, and talk about that one. And then second of all, Romans 5, with it's once again the second Adam doctrine. And then third, go to the Acts 17 passage.
Sounds good.
So in 1 Corinthians 15, in verse 20, he begins to get into this two Adam doctrine.
But now is Christ risen from the dead, and become the firstfruits of them that slept. For since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive.
And then Paul expands on this down below in really verses 42 through 49.
So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption. It is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit, that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and afterward that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy. And as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly.
Paul here is teaching the doctrine of the two great priests, our two great representatives, the first Adam and the second Adam, or the first man and the second man. And people will read in verse 45, people see this phrase, the first man Adam, and they think, well, Adam was the first human being God ever made, and so he was the first man. But that's not what Paul's referring to. And what the reader needs to understand is that the sense in which Adam was the first man is the sense in which Jesus was the second man. So, when reading this, you have to understand that the manner in which Adam served as this first man, the same has to be true for the second man. You can't read an idea into one and not the other. So by just reading it enough, the whole passage through a few times, people can get the gist of this. Paul's teaching the two great priests in God's overall scheme. That's what he's teaching. So, got to keep it in context. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense to me. It seems like as soon as you start reading about the second man, and I think many will agree that referring to Christ, especially when you read the entire chapter and you see that connection, you just simply ask, like, well, what do you do with that? If you think Adam was the first literal man, then how is Christ the second literal man? You can't look at it that way.
No.
You gotta be looking at the way you had described. It makes total sense to me. This first man, second man, first man, last man doctrine that that's what he's talking about.